We're not exactly short of rainfall in Grangetown. It's part of our lives and something that we all take for granted. But maybe what we don't realise is what happens to it after the rain has fallen. Well, it goes down the drain, into the Taff, then into the sea, doesn't it? Well, not exactly. The rainwater that falls in Grangetown gets pumped 8 miles into the Vale of Glamorgan through a series of pumping stations before being treated and then put into the sea near Barry, which is a very long way for the rainfall to travel and a lot of energy used just to get it to the sea. But we're only a mile from the sea here in Grangetown, with the River Taff running through the area. Wouldn't it make more sense for the water to go directly into the river, which is a much shorter distance away? Well, that's exactly what the groundbreaking Greener Grangetown project aims to do. A partnership between the City of Cardiff Council, Dŵr Cymru Welsh Water and Natural Resources Wales. A byproduct of completing the barrage in Cardiff Bay meant that rainfall and surface water in the Grangetown area had to be diverted away from the river. But that's about to change, because through pioneering sustainable technology, the Greener Grangetown project has found a way to catch, clean and divert rainfall directly into the river. These innovative techniques will include installing attractive planted areas that will help to absorb the water in the form of new trees, planters, grass channels, drainage curbs and rain gardens. The vegetation will actually clean the water naturally, as well as providing the community with more green space to enjoy. Rain gardens can be used in streets and are basically planted sections that catch rainwater and re-divert it into the Taff. This reduces the amount of rainwater entering the drainage system by allowing rainfall to soak into the ground, which in turn cuts down on the amount of pollution reaching our rivers and streams. We expect to remove around 42,480 square metres of surface water from the combined wastewater network. That's the equivalent surface area of about 10 football pitches to you and me, thereby significantly reducing the carbon footprint and costs associated with pumping the water through the existing network. The project has already drawn attention from all over Britain and beyond, winning global endorsements in the field. Such is the importance of the scheme, we've involved the public at every stage, and you can find out more at www.greenergrangetown.wordpress.com or get involved on Twitter with @GreenerGrange, #GreenerGrangetown. The scheme will increase biodiversity in the area and will transform Grangetown, ultimately making it a cleaner, greener place to live.
Well, good afternoon everyone. As you said, my name's Ian Titherington. I'm a council civil engineer. I've been for 27 years. I came up with this mad idea about 8 years ago for Greener Grangetown. The multiple benefits. Developing retrofit is a challenge. Doing it in an inner city area is, from my perspective, the ultimate challenge. It's not a suburb. It hasn't got green open spaces. There's no green areas at all. It's a densely populated area. It's a very mixed multicultural community. 48 different languages spoken in a local primary school. It really is Cardiff dots. And from the very start, we've worked to try and collaborate and cooperate as organisations. The partnership is actually between Cardiff Council Company and Natural Resources Wales.
You continue to have consultation and conversation. You have a full-time liaison officer with the
you're on site today to me, and we've had an early involvement with our design and ERH tender, a very early contract involvement as part of the project. We've all tried to avoid competition and have a partnership in working because it's so pioneering. We want to try and learn as many lessons as we can from the project. These are the two people speaking today. I'm representing the client, but I'm also a civil engineer. And Ken, representing the contractor, also a civil engineer. Not so many civil engineers around the local government anymore, but you know, we always try and work together on these things and understand the lessons that we're learning. This is the area, and this is the very definition of unsustainable drainage. This is the distance the rainwater is travelling for pumping and treatment at the moment. When the barrage was impounded in Cardiff Bay in 1999, all the combined sewage went straight into the bay untreated.
obviously treated twice a day by the tidal movements. I think that was the phraseology we used at the time. And it's pumped into the system now, and literally rainwater falling 20 yards from the River Taff travels 8 miles for treatment, and goes to tertiary treatment, and then gets pumped out into the sea. It's a ridiculous situation, but what we're doing here is nothing to do with flooding. This is all to do with rainwater removal from the sewer system. This isn't going to solve any flooding problems in the area because we don't have any flooding problems in the area. And this is about removing rainwater from the sewer system to enhance the community and to save money in terms of environmental costs. This is talked about the cooperation. In Wales, we have one unitary authority. We have fewer levels than they do in England. And so I think it's been easier for us to work as an organisation or group because there are fewer people and fewer levels to talk to each other. So as a unitary authority, I do drainage, I actually do the planning applications as well. I'm not a planner, I'm a civil engineer. But we deal with everything as a unitary authority. We can talk to one water authority we deal with and one government body. So that makes it easier in a way for us to work as a cooperative effectively in terms of the project delivery. These are the visions. To make Greener Grangetown an exemplar scheme for sustainable drainage. I'm not aware of any scheme that's been done anywhere in the UK quite like what we're doing, which makes it challenging on site, but interesting. Create greater partnerships with public and private and third sectors, very, very important. Our relationship with Welsh Water, something we intend to build on as a local authority. We have a lot of planning powers, they have a lot of AMP spend. You need to put the two together because we've got the same customers at the end of the day, so it makes sense. To enhance the visibility of water, this is something I always say, to change perception of rainwater, to be regarded as an asset. Often we talk about rainwater as a threat from a river, from a watercourse. People like to live next to water features, but they're a threat because they flood. Well, if you engineer the water features, they're not a threat. So you get the acid and you don't get the threat. So that's what we're trying to do in terms of the project. Design process and integration. This is a classic sort of design drawing we put up with several public meetings. We had street surgeries, lots of things to the door in terms of encouraging people on different design options for different streets, different types of plants. We had to work within a criteria of plants that can live, in a rain garden environment that would suit the local locality in terms of fauna and flora. But people had options because of different types of blooming and different colours, different times of year. So we've had that input, and we use that to hone each street design. This is an example of the consultation process that we did. We set up, in an open air. We had halls hired. We had about a 25% response rate from the community. If we talk about consultation, that's quite a high percentage. Bearing in mind a lot of people's first language wasn't English, it is a challenging issue to get to the community and cultural challenges. We found a way around a lot of those problems. This is a classic example of where we went in terms of design. On the left-hand side, you'll see the very first design idea we came up with. And as we went back and consulted, there are six different designs to the final design on this particular street that we came up with and we're currently building. And it shows the level of change that came through. That was set by ground levels, by services, by the street layout, but a lot to do with what the locals wanted in terms of preferences, in terms of parking. Probably the single biggest issue of retrofit sites, if you're doing it inside an urban area, parking will be the top issue. I can guarantee that. And how you manage that parking in the city area when you do the design is absolutely critical. But it shows the change of design that came through in terms of that element. I mentioned earlier about the relationship between ourselves and the contractor. We did, under NEC3, we brought ELH in, we won a tender at a very, very early stage. And prior to going out to tender, all the tenders were brought in to do a presentation of the project to understand what we were trying to achieve, what involvement we wanted with them on site. And in fairness to ELH, they've really taken that on as a contractor. And I must say, they've probably got a much better relationship with the residents than I have. I get roundly shouted at by one or two of them because of parking issues, but they love the contractor. And because they work so hard in terms of working with the community, and they take a lot of pride in the work they're doing, because we spend a lot of time talking to the contractors about what we're trying to achieve, and they understand the technical side. So when someone comes up and asks them in the street, A big bruising bricklayer from Tonopandi will go into the intricacies of urban suds design, and because they take so much pride in the work they're doing, and that relationship, you wouldn't be able to deliver a project like this unless you had that relationship with the contractor. So I could ask Ken Evans, a fellow civil engineer, come and talk about the contractor's perspective of building retrofit suds.
Yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ken Evans. I'm a chartered civil engineer. I've had 30 years experience in local authority, and then in the last year I've now gone on to the private sector. My background is highway maintenance, so usually I was maintaining this, so I wasn't involved in actually building it. A little bit about ERH, the company I work for, which I'm a civil engineer with. We run 3 disciplines usually. We've got a traffic management section, which covers all of the UK. We've got smart technology, which does all the electrical stuff on highways. So we do cameras, speeding cameras, and speed limits. And the other thing is we do civil engineering as well, which we do drainage cycleways and traffic calming. So we do quite a bit of it all together, so it's quite what I do. Okay, some of the challenges which we've had is we looked when we had the contract, we looked at we had the works, the utilities, where all the drainage was and everything to start with. So we had all the utility plans and everything. But when we actually went into it, we realised that there was a lot of utilities that wasn't marked, because all the service pipes into the houses, gas pipes and everything, we had a lot of problems with striking them and things, even though we had the information up front. That was for the big ones, but the service ones we did have problems with. The other ones, some of the other issues we've had with as well is the ground conditions. It's made up ground conditions it is, so that it's the old estuary. So when we were excavating, it's very loose it was, so we had problems with shoring and everything like that. But we worked very closely with Ian and the client to resolve those issues. The other challenges was the type of streets. We got one street, we had to have a very narrow street, and one was a wide street. The narrow streets, we had to have total road closures, which caused problems from exiting into the streets, informing the residents, bins, collections, and all that sort of thing. The wider streets we were able to keep open with two-way traffic. The main problem was communication. We really did have to communicate with the public, really, well, work with them as well. We had a lot of issues with closing the street or where the parking was going to be. That was one issue. So we had to arrange parking in other streets and things like that. So that was quite a bit of a challenge as well. And the other challenge is, as you say, there's a picture of the drainage up the main street. People in the streets could see we had to close the street, but what benefit would that make for them? They couldn't see any benefit, so we had to sell it to the public. And that's where we put a public relations officer on site, where he was daily talking to people, explaining what was going on. And in fact, we've had something like 47 drop-in sessions we've had once a week, where the public would be able to go in the local library, and any complaints or anything, we'd sort it out with them. We also had 2 public meetings, which we supported Ian in as well, which was hugely subscribed it was. But it was keeping informed with newsletters and everything. The other issue, which a challenge we had, was we were always in people's eyes, and we had health and safety, not health and safety issues, but we had people ringing up health and safety to say, trying to obstruct the work, what I could say, and sort of things. But there was nothing wrong there, but of course with health and safety, once they come down, they look at things, we get recharged, and we had to really sort of work with health and safety as well. And we had photographs taken out of bedroom windows, but once they could see us progressing and everything, it did improve a lot then, and people are starting to come and talking to us now, and and it is improving much. And like I say, one thing is working with the public. I cannot stress enough about it. This was one, we did this ramp, and as you can see, there's a Chinese warehouse that covered the most of South Wales and of Cardiff, so there were deliveries going in there, and the opposite side of the road as well, there was a vegetarian shop. Now then, we had to put a load of work in, talking to these people, arrange our working arrangements as well for it. We had to speak to Cardiff Highways as well to try and get a different route in. So look at rate restrictions and everything. All right, in the end, it was hard work, but it did work out in a way. Urban trees, we had to keep some of the existing trees. This is some of the ones where residents in Bargood Street, I think it was, where they wanted the trees kept as they paid for the streets, for the trees we planted many years ago. This was difficult. Roots, dealing with roots, making sure that we didn't damage any roots. And as you can see as well, taking away parking. And that, on this contract, as Ian said, it was a huge issue, was the parking, because people could see us taking away parking, providing these rain gardens and everything, and they were just losing spaces of thinking. But in this area as well, which is very close to the city centre, there was a lot of commuter traffic. People, when they were in the offices, employed, they were given a plan and said, if you want free parking, this is the area to park. And in fact, the first morning we turned up there, there was a huge queue of commuter traffic ready to park, which filled all the spaces up. So what we did, we provided a parking permit, give them all out with Ian as well, give them all out to the residents, so that they each had a parking, the Greener Grangetown logo. They came down the road, and then our public relations officer could see that they were residents and we allowed them to park in. We couldn't physically stop the commuters' traffic, but in the end we did displace them and put them onto other streets, which caused problems in other streets. That's an example there of one of the other trees which we had to do. We exposed the roots, we would put sacking, wet sacking over it. Again, helping Cardiff environmental people were working with us as well over this. So we were working so closely, and as you can see, it's behind the barriers, and people were taking pictures of it because it was, right in the middle of the urban 500 odd houses there. So it was, we were really in the spotlight. Construction, the dead end rain gardens. That's one. That's a picture beforehand. What we did. There'd been some antisocial behaviour there. So what Ian, in the design bit, we were looking to design this out, improve the light in there, and just make it a nicer place to sort of live in. And I know when we started digging it, people thought we were building swimming pools there, but again, communication. Here's a picture of the rain garden that's near enough complete now, ready for planting. Just about ready for planting it is. It's gone on a lot more than that, and we've got the paving around it. And you can see in a way why they say about the rain, it looks like a swimming pool. As you can see, the granite that wood came in from China. Very hard material. It was all slotted in and fitted correctly. We had some cutting to do, so that was a fair bit of a problem. But again, lifting, we had to look at different types of lifting techniques, make sure all that was okay, and regular visits with health and safety and our own audit people. So our paperwork had to be absolutely spot on with it. And that's what the finished product is going to look like. And that's what we were doing, is trying to sell that to the people, that that's the way it's going to look. We haven't fully completed one yet because we're just about ready to start the planting, but it's not far off that really, the look of it. And I think we've got 2 streets now that are about ready to hand back to Ian, so now people can see, it is starting to improve. Now we've got the surfacing down as well. It's like the icing on the cake, and people are starting to look to see the benefits of it as well. There's a couple of pictures there where you can see in the bottom corner there, you can see the public utilities. We've had to engineer into the works. That's a gas main where we've had to put it through the garden, again with Wales in the West utilities. That's one of the tree ones, and that's where the pods are as well, where we put them in the ground so they don't condense it, to allow filtration as well when we plant the trees. And this is one then of the curbing. where that's recycled curbing on the edge there, which is made out of quarry dust and recycled plastic paper as well. So people, you know, they can see what we're doing. It has been a slow job, and I'll say that because we've had to work slow, and we do have a lot of input in the design, and we don't rush on so far. So the client is able to, if they want to make any alterations and everything, you know, we can do it on site. So it's working together. Now in that sense, at sunset, I know it's not a very good picture, but you can see the layout. You can see the rain gardens as you go up the street, and that's where people think that they're losing the parking spaces. You know, what it is. But of course, what Ian is doing as well, Cardiff Council is doing, is looking at car parking, residence parking, so that they're looking at that area. But of course, we were the front, we were the one who were taking all this. Of course, Ian has a huge input into it, but you know, we were on the face of it with them as well, and educating our workmen as well. We toolbox talks every day, because the people come out and say, oh, will you alter this or will you alter that? And we know we can't alter things like that. We've got to go through the client, but they look at it, you know, outside their own house. Then, interesting part, this is the Taff embankment, which there's 14 streets that come down, and this is where the main the outfalls are going to be. Now, and this is a very busy, it's part of the Taff Trail. So you've got the cyclists going down there, and the amount of cyclists that come down and the speed of the cyclists is just unbelievable. It's especially in the rush hour and things. So this is a good picture really, because normally that is full of commuter traffic. I think this was taken very early in the morning, wasn't it, before on a Sunday morning. But so what's going to happen? So that's going to be the finished product. It's going to be one of the first ones in Wales. Is called the bicycle street, where the footways are going to be extended, and then we've started now. We're just starting to put the rumble strip up the centre of the road, where the traffic will be able to go. So one wheel will be on the granite, and we'll use it as traffic calming. So it won't be done with signs of the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's designed into it. We've also had to raise the levels of the footpath to cover the roots of the trees and everything, to bring that up and widen it, and just to make sure that it's a shared one between the cyclists and the pedestrians, and it looks a nicer place to work as well as a drainage system, a self-drainage system. I do finish this up.
Yeah, just finish briefly. This is the area, sort of the tap, as you can see, the Millennium Stadiums, some at the top there. These are the 12 streets we're working. This is the tap trail we talked about from Tap Embankment. There's a very, very busy cycling route around here. A lot of the work we're doing is not just about drainage, it's about actually looking about sustainable transport. It's safer to walk and safer to cycle. It's really, really important part of this project. You know, we're trying to get the multi-benefits you can get from the quality and amenity from a sub scheme, and we're using the wellbeing legislation the Welsh Government has created to try and encourage these projects. I have to say it hasn't been easy to deliver in that context, because in terms of funding, everything is very, very siloed. I went to the Welsh Government and said, could I have money? And they said, is it a flood risk team? I said, no, I can't give you any money then. You know, if it was all in one pocket, they give you the money, but because it was split between different ones, the funding mechanisms didn't work that way. And I think we're trying to find a way, working with the Welsh Government and the water authorities, etc., of encouraging projects that have multifaceted gains, that you know, almost to encourage people to give money to projects that have multifaceted gains, because this really will transform the area in terms of greenery, in terms of environment, in terms of squeezing out commuter traffic, and turning it into the residential area that it was built to be in the first place, to house people to work in Cardiff docks. That way it was constructed in the first place. So that's what we're trying to do by making drainage work better. It's as simple as that. We're using drainage as a tool to improve a whole community and effectively get people to understand that water is an asset and not a threat. I think that's a really, really important message. And I say the partnership thing is important between ourselves. Welsh Water have been a big fund of the scheme along with Cardiff, Natural Resources Wales in terms of their governmental input, and obviously Arup as the main designers for the project are based locally and reach as a South Wales contractor. But we all sit in the room together very regularly, with minor disagreements, particularly me and Ken, sometimes over costs, but in reality, it can't be confrontational. If you want to deliver a project, a retrofit sites project in an inner city community, confrontation doesn't help. You have to avoid confrontation, constantly communicate, and make the community feel part of the scheme. If they feel ownership, you're a winner. If they feel that they're part of the project and they feel ownership at the end of the project, that's when you've got it right. If you don't talk to them, that's when you get it wrong. But consultation, as a civil engineer, 25 years I got it wrong. I realised what consultation is now by getting it right. When you put something to the door and people start complaining that they're having stuff to the door, that's when you've hit base level. That's when you've hit the bottom level. And I think as a client, and I think from the OH's perspective, that's a lesson that we've learned in terms of delivering retrofit sites in Cardiff.
We had a public meeting, well, just before we started, when we had to meet the contractor.
Yeah.
We thought about 50 people turned up, and there was about 150, 200 people.
Yeah.
And real angry,
Very
angry people. And then we had one recently, a couple of weeks ago, and it's completely changed now.
There's only one angry person.
Yeah, there's only one angry person.
No, I think it's the communication. You can't do enough, and I think as a final point, I had one guy came up to me recently. He lived in a terrace street, and his house was built before the invention of the internal combustion engine. I have to have this chat with him sometimes. He said, "Well, I've got 5 cars. What am I supposed to do?" I kept polite, and I talked to him and explained what we tried to do, and explained. And we put so much information through his door, and he suddenly realised I didn't think this guy could read and write. We put stuff through his door, but he can't read it. And I thought, how did we miss this person? How do we communicate? How do we talk to these people who don't have reading and writing skills? And you have to think of that in terms of communication, in terms of visual communication, in terms of going to the door and talking to people. That's the best way. And I think you cannot do enough. You have to assume people don't understand what you're doing unless they tell you do. And that was a lesson to me, to understand that many people don't understand, and you have to keep talking to them because it's their street and it's their life, and it's our jobs to get it right and involve them. And I better finish the presentation there, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Ken. I think Ian said to me just before we started the presentation that he came a few years ago and presented this before they start the project, and he was determined he wasn't coming back until they were building the project. So it's good to see him building it, and hopefully in a few years he'll come back and show us pictures of the project finished, and hopefully the community might have stopped shouting at him by then. So before we move on, does anyone have any quick questions that they want clarification on?
I noticed that litter was a problem in the area prior to you starting the project. I was wondering how you're going to ensure that the area is maintained in the future.
As it's retrofit, it's got to be adopted by the local authority. There's no other option. With new build in Cardiff, what we're doing is getting people to pay into the deeds of the properties so that it's managed, say, by a management company, and we have step-in rights as a local authority, so we don't end up with suds. But in terms of retrofit, we are putting a lump sum in the contract as a commuted sum to manage the green open space. It's not ideal, it's 25 years, you work out the cost. It's what we do with all parkland areas, but what we do in ensuring that is that we get the design right in terms of maintenance, in terms of the gardens, for instance, quite shallow, so they're easy to maintain in terms of maintenance. All the highway gullies are standard highway gullies that are accessible with the vehicles that we use, and the plants that are used, our plants department had a big input in what we use so they can maintain them. So I think it's important to involve the people who are going to do the maintenance, make sure there's a commuted sum for that maintenance, and also involve the community, because we're going to be involving the community next month to actually doing some of the planting. So they're going to choose some of the trees, choose some of the plants of the list that we've got, and actually come out, and we're going to have a slot for each street to do planting in the street. It's that ownership. When you feel an ownership, you feel a responsibility, and you take a responsibility to look after it as well, because it's in a very inner city urban area with a lot of passing people, and that's important. So I think the ownership of the community and the feeling of ownership by not patronising them, involving them, that has to play a role, particularly with the pressures on local government spending. The community taking a role in looking after their own community is key.
Are you planning to measure the benefits of this scheme in a way? I think there's probably a few different aspects: drainage performance, flooding aspects, probably social benefits as well. So just wondering if you have anything in mind, plan to measure that.
We've already started a few research projects prior to the scheme taking place. We did a lot of flow monitoring in the adopted sewer system, and Welsh Water are going to do a lot of post-construction flow monitoring. We've done a community attitude survey for Cardiff University, where we've used the community and we've used a similar nearby community before and after attitude survey. We're going to be doing fauna and flora surveys. We're hoping to do an extensive water quality survey, because at the moment, as far as I'm aware, we still use the old US standards. We don't actually have UK standards. Well, why not develop them through Greener Grangetown? We've got 70 or 80 rain gardens. It's a really good site to work from. So we're going to try and use this as a site with Welsh Government money to do research on water quality, because we've adopted the whole system. They're all accessible in terms of water quality, so we're going to look at that, because we're not infiltrating, because the ground is contaminated, so we're catching everything. So we're going to have ideas on water quality in terms of vegetation, with a tree, without a tree, over time in terms of maintenance. All these issues we're going to take into account in terms of evapotranspiration amounts, something I think is going to become a bigger issue as the years go by. So we are going to research all that. We've already spoken to Cardiff University, Arup, and we're going to hopefully coordinate that research after the project is complete, because I think there's an enormous amount we can learn from this sort of retrofit.